Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth of our webinars for Invasive Species Week. So I'm very pleased to be joined by two of our brilliant non-native species inspectors today. Before I hand over to them, I'll just run through some quick housekeeping things. So we're recording the webinar today. If you have any problems, sorry, I'm just going to admit some more people. Yeah, if you have any problems with sound or anything, you'll be able to see it afterwards if you can't sort those out, and it will be there for anyone who can't attend. But yeah, if you are having trouble like hearing or with the screen or anything, just suggest logging out and then joining again using the same link that you have. If you haven't been to any before, then we run the Q&A at the end. If you just add any questions to the chat box or the Q&A, then we'll go through those at the end of the talk. But yeah, I think that is everything that I need to mention. So yeah, I'm very pleased to introduce Courtney and Zoe from the Non-Native Species Inspectorate, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. And I've watched some of the other webinars this week and they all sound really interesting. So thank you for organising everything. Yeah, so my name's Zoe. I'm part of the Non-Native Species Inspectorate and I'm joined today with my colleague Courtney. We are split between, I'm very much in the south and she is very much in the north. So hopefully you should get a good spread of the kind of things that we do. So we're just going to talk to you about the Inspectorate and what we've been doing for the past year and some of the weird and wonderful things that we get up to. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about us. So we're a team of 17 people across the whole of the UK. So we all cover really big regions. Our main piece of work is enforcing a piece of legislation called the Invasive Alien Species Order. This was brought into effect in 2019. In short, it's a list of 66 species, pretty much 50-50 plants and animals, with which you can't breed, sell, release, import various things, but we'll go into it a bit more later. We also cover the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981. This is kind of a secondary piece of legislation for us, but we still do advice and guidance on this kind of legislation. So this is how our team is structured. So as you can see, we are split across absolutely everywhere. Some of our regions are bigger than others. So Scotland is quite big. And then I'm down based in London and Courtney's up in the north. So our main piece of work, I suppose, is out and about doing inspections. We do inspections of all sorts of different sectors. So here's just a short list of the things we do. So zoos, animal rescue centres, pet shops, garden centres. These stats were from last year, as you can see, so 2023 to 2024, when there was only 9 inspectors. So I think that's a pretty high number of inspections for only 9 people. The list of non-compliance percentage is kind of higher than I think a lot of people expect. But that's mostly due to people just not knowing about the legislation. Like I said earlier, it's really new. It only came in 2019, and we as a team were only created in 2022. So a lot of people just don't know that it exists. So we go out and about, get the word out. It's a lot about advice rather than being really, really strict. We just try to like inform people and tell them why it's important and what they need to do. Then a few of these, the non-compliance are just NA. That's mostly because for these sectors, we're looking at contaminants rather than any species that are on the list. Obviously, if there are species that are on the piece of legislation that we come across, we'll take action against it. But most of it is just looking at contaminants. So the species that we are focused on, there are many different ways in which they've come into the UK. So one of the biggest ways is hitchhiking on other things. So whether that's within imports on planes or in containers, like on ships, or even in people's cars coming across the border, or even on the bottom of people's shoes. Even a single seed that you might have on the bottom of your shoe could then, if you bring it into the UK, it could then plant itself and then create a very small population. There's also people selling things illegally online. So we have a project, which Courtney's going to talk about a bit later, but where we go through lots of different websites and try to really minimize people selling things that they shouldn't be online. Intentional releases, so terrapins is a really big issue for us. A lot of people buy them and they're really small and they're really cute, and then they grow and they're always bigger than people think. So some people, not everyone, some people like to just put them in their nearby pond, and then that can cause a whole population within itself. Escapes as well. So if people don't have like adequate fencing or gates or anything in their properties, that can mean that these species escape, and then they can create a small population themselves. I think Courtney's going to talk about garden centres.
I am, yes. So we go around garden centres and pet shops. We look at what they're selling. We do find that most of our aquatic plants that are on our list or on our invasive alien species list are the ones that we tend to find in garden centres. And this is mainly because they tend to have them in their garden ponds out back, or they have them in fish tanks, and they chuck them all in a bucket and just put them down as oxygenating weeds. They don't list them. You can see the photo on the left with some nice little fish in the tank. That is some Lycosiphon major, which is quite popular to find in pet shops. And mainly people are just grabbing them out of their pond, stick them in the fish tank and sell them just to make a bit more money, because these, for anyone who's got aquatic plants in their fish tanks, know that as soon as you stop looking at your plants, they just bloom everywhere. So they have them in abundance. Then the main background photo is a Zola. I will touch on a Zola again a little bit later in online sales, but we find that this isn't normally sold in garden centres and pet shops. It's normally just a byproduct that tends to be in the buckets and other tanks where they're selling plants. I believe this picture was taken from a colleague that was in a big tank that had pond lilies in. So what we tend to do when we find Azolla is educate, with it being a contaminant and not being sold, to try and encourage the owners to clean down all the equipment, empty it out, so that it's not getting spread around when people are buying the other plants that are in there as a byproduct. And then on the right is our only non-aquatic plant on the page, and it is Tree of Heaven, Alianthus, which we found it was in a nursery. So they had actually got a cutting from one of the trees that they've actually got planted on site, and then started growing extra on because no one else was selling it on the market. So they found a hole in the market and they wondered why. Again, it was a whole, you can't sell this, showed them the legislation. They were very apologetic and realised that that's the reason why there was a gap in the market, and they stopped selling it immediately, and the rest of the stock was destroyed. So it stopped being spread around the UK, which was good. And when it comes to the animal side for the pet shops, it's mostly aquatic plants we find. It's very rare that we will find a pet shop selling some of our big IS animals, such as a raccoon or a raccoon dog, because they're a little bit harder to contain in a pet shop. We do occasionally find birds, such as the minor birds that are being sold, or parakeets. I don't believe we found any monk parakeets being sold in the pet trade for a while yet, but I can't be certain on that one. Which is always it's a good thing. It makes our lives a little bit easier. Next slide, please. So here this shows some of our animals in zoos and rescue centres. So we go to as many zoos as we can, along with rescue centres, and go basically speak to them. A lot of rescue centres get dumped with a lot of terrapins, as you can see on our wanted poster at the top there on the top right. And it's the way that we approach it is to educate the rescue centres, let them know exactly where they stand on receiving animals that are in the IS, so that they're not caught out and they can pass the animals on to the correct facilities. You are allowed to hold our IS animals as long as you've got a permit or a license and you fit the criteria. So it includes criteria such as how you contain the animals. As you can imagine, raccoons are quite hard to contain. They are very good at escaping, which they are one of our biggest priorities at the moment, with making sure they're all tracked for when they're in the zoos and rescue centres and contained. You can see we've got a big grey patch saying not applicable. That is down to when we've gone to zoos and rescue centres and they've not had any IS species. So as you can see, most common ones are raccoons, coatis and sliders, followed finally by raccoon dogs, which sliders are the big problem because there's just so many of them. It's quite hard to get a good number on them. But yeah, that's pretty much the zoos and rescue centres. So then we move on to online sales, which falls quite nicely after talking about garden centres, pet shops and zoos. So once every quarterly, we go on as a team and look at online sales, and we will have a list of synonyms and common search terms for basically all of our listed plants and animals and search multiple websites to see if anything flag up. As you can see from the photos, we look on eBay, and we also look at Etsy and a few other websites. The only issues with it is that a lot of people tend to have them as the incorrect science name, so they're not always as straightforward as just looking for it. So occasionally we will look at the photos, but a lot of the images on eBay are just stock images that come up that might be suitable for the listing. So that's the one that they use. So we will occasionally, if it has a different name, we'll purchase a sample, get our one of our guys in the team that is a plant expert to identify it for us. And if it is one of our listed plants, we then would take action. The listing gets removed. The eBay has been very good with us, and other search engines are available as well, and with removing them and sending them a notification to explain why they've been removed and to stop them from being able to put more listings up. It also works with plants, people trying to sell plants and animals and bring them into the UK, so getting them imported in. There is a strong possibility that you would purchase them and they would be taken by customs or border force to stop them from actually getting to you, but there is a small chance that they could slip through. So online sales, we have found that the listings have reduced dramatically since this. I believe this is our second year of doing it, and third time I've done one of the quarterlies, and even I've noticed that it's a lot quicker. It used to take us days to get through the whole list. Now we can all get it done in a few days as the team does it, and it's just a lot. It shows that what we're doing is actually working. I just wanted to mention that. Sorry, if you could just go back, Zoe. I just wanted to mention that the Azolla picture at the bottom, on the bottom right, if you can see, it says extra large portion of fairy moss Azolla. This is one of the reasons why we have to get samples, because we can't confirm if that is the illegal species or if it is a species that one of the non-banned ones. So we do have to get a sample and try and identify them so that we can take action as well. Sorry, no, next slide. We also go and do boating inspections. You can see we've got our little campaign sticker, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide, which is check, clean, dry. So these boating inspections, we're looking, as Zoe mentioned earlier, for contaminants mainly. So we've been very fortunate up north to be allowed a lot of access to the Lake District, and to go sit by the lakes, and anyone coming in or coming out, we will speak to them, ask where they've had their boats, which includes paddle boards, which is very popular at the moment. Ask if we can have a quick look over it, make sure they've heard of check, clean, dry, and just look to see if there's anything attached. Now, you don't tend to find stuff stuck to things like paddle boards, but as you can see from the photos of our colleagues, it's Emma and Rob, the other boats on the market have a lot more hidey holes. I believe it was Emma that was doing a washdown station check, and they found 2 demon shrimps just before the boats were going onto the water. So it was always good to see that at a washdown. It shows the reason why we do what we do. So that those were stopped from going into the water system. It's also good in order for us to look back at the risk analysis to see what we are finding, if it is worth us spending our time doing boating checks. We do a similar thing with angling as well, where we will go up and down popular angling areas, mostly canals, ask if we can have a look at their equipment, their gear, to see if there's anything, mostly in their dip nets, but in their tackle boxes as well, see if they've been fishing abroad, or if it's in the UK, if they just stick to the one waterway, etc., just to bulk out our data so that we can again see what the risk factor would potentially be for these two sectors. I believe that is pretty much everything for boating and angling. So here are a few of our campaigns. The two big ones is Be Plant Wise and Stop the Spread. The Be Plant Wise is one of our biggest ones. It kind of falls for everyone. It's basically to know what you're growing, stop the spread of any invasives, and make sure you check what you're putting in your compost and what happens to your compost. So the Be Plant Wise is also, there is a list, quite a few common IS plants that you will find in big estate gardens, and a lot of people probably have them in the garden, such as gunnera or skunk cabbage. Now, it's also your responsibility, if you have it on your own personal property, to make sure that it stays there and doesn't escape from the garden. It's not just animals that escape, plants will also do it. They're quite good at it. And if you are found to have had one escape from your land, you are responsible to remove it from off your property and pay the price, which can be quite expensive. The Stop the Spread, Check, Clean, Dry is a very important one to stop mostly vegetation, but also invertebrates such as the demon shrimp from spreading from one waterway to another. This falls under boats and angling. Just leaving your equipment out once you've cleaned it to then dry in the UV. The UV light from the sun mostly is the main thing that stops the spread of things and kills anything before it can go back out. So these are really big campaigns that we're trying to get the word out. We've got multiple leaflets for nearly every single thing you can think of, specialised leaflets for paddle boarders, boats, fishing abroad, fishing in the UK, and a lot of helpful gardening guides as well for what plants you can use as alternatives to some of the banned ones, and they're all on the Secretariat website. So if you're interested, most of them have online PDF downloadable resources. So that's where you can find any further information about our campaigns. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying earlier about pathways, imports is a really big one for us. So we do a lot of work in the ports, as you can see, Rob, our lovely colleague. So we work a lot with many different organisations. So Plant Health, Port Health, Border Force, the CITES team. We've done different pieces of work with all of those groups. So containers, shipping containers is one of our big ones for us. So as you can see in that bottom right photo, we've got Rob. So there he's looking at like individual plants and if they've got any hitchhikers or anything naughty that they shouldn't have. We also do slightly bigger things. So as you can see in the one to the left of that, he's then looking at like the packaging. We have found like lizards and spiders and all sorts of funny things coming on. We look both at the products and also at the container themselves, the inside and the outside. We also do other projects. So I work with the post office looking at parcels. So we target different countries and then the post office x-ray them for us. The x-ray then comes up with different colours depending on what kind of material is in each parcel. If it comes back as like a brownie kind of colour, it's some sort of plant material. So they then put it to one side and then I will go along with a few of my other plant health colleagues, open up all the parcels, which is a bit like Christmas and I do find very exciting. See what's inside and then do whatever is appropriate to whatever we find. We have found banned species before being brought in, like Courtney was saying with the online sales, and we do put a stop to them. Also, we've worked with the CITES team, so they work for more endangered diverse species. So we've done projects with them where we found CITES listed cactuses and orchids and things like that. So that's really exciting. And then a bit more onto more of our project work, so maybe slightly less day to day, but more like rapid response work, or if we get any reports of anything. So one of our big things at the moment is the Asian hornet, which they had some really interesting news articles that I saw yesterday, which I don't know if anyone else has seen them, but so a few of us are trained in destroying Asian hornet nests, which we use. I don't know if you can see in the middle picture, there's like a long stick, which is a lance, and then we shoot the powder through the lance and that destroys the nest. So we had a huge increase in nests that we found last year. Last year there were about 70, most of them in the southeast of England, but a few in London, a few further up north as well. Because we found so many last year, we've started doing spring trapping this year, again, mostly in the southeast, but a few further up north as well. So that's been really interesting. I think most of us have got involved with that, so that's really fun. Really important, I'm sure you've all heard about it, but the Asian Hornet Watch app is the only and the best way to report any Asian hornet that you think you might see. Even if you're not sure, download the app, fill in the form, send in a picture, and someone will respond to you really quickly. It's one of our main pieces of work at the moment. We're really keen in not getting these species established, which they're not at the moment. But I mean, the problem's over in France. We're trying to prevent that. Also, a lot of people, they know that I do this kind of work now, so they come up to me and go, "Oh, Zoe, I've seen an Asian hornet." And then they often say, "It was huge." And I'm like, well, if you're saying it's huge, it's not an Asian hornet. So the European hornets are much, much bigger than the Asians. Also, as you can see from the bottom picture, the Asian hornets are so much darker. So that's another really telling way. They also wear these little yellow socks. That's also quite a good ID feature. And then please do download the app, report if you think you've seen one. It really does help us out. There's only so many of us. We cannot be everywhere. So another project that I'm working on at the moment is with Taponoma nigerium ants. There's a property in London which has got a huge infestation of these ants, which we've been working on now for 2 years. So we've got guys going in every week during the season, spraying, gelling. They've also started recently using a vacuum to hoover them up, which is quite fun, I think. Yeah, they're a massive problem. So this site has a garden centre right next door. So we think that these ants have been imported through some of the plants that came into the garden centre. And now, obviously, the garden centre want to sell the plants, but they can't sell them if they've got these invasive ants. So this is one that I've been working on for a while. We are getting somewhere slowly, but these ants, they're so different to your regular garden ants. I don't know if you can see with the top picture, they're a lot darker than your regular garden ants. That's usually the best way. They also move a lot quicker, and they make these really clear like motorways. So garden ants, they do have pathways, but they're usually a bit wandery and not very good. Whereas these Taponoma ants, these pathways they make are super clear and super direct. Another one of my big projects at the moment is the monk parakeets. So I'm sure everyone has heard of a ringneck parakeet. These guys are slightly different, same family, but they don't have the rings around their necks, and they've got these yellow, white tummies as well. So we started this 10 years ago, where we had about 100 of them. We've counted in different sites. We've now currently got them pinned down to one site, and there's only 9 left. So we've been managing these for a long time. I do this by every month going up in a cherry picker and removing their eggs so they can't breed, and then hoping that eventually they're just going to die out naturally. But this is a really exciting one that I've been fortunate to join because it's been going on for so long that I think we might finally be near the end of this one.
And then it takes us to the Great White Tooth Shrew project that it was a full hands on deck kind of thing last summer. Zoe was kindly enough came up and helped me and Emma with some trapping. They were first reported in the UK in Sunderland a couple of years ago by it was a cat accident. An indoor cat had managed to get hold of a shrew. Luckily, the woman is quite fond of the small mammals and knew that something wasn't right, so it was reported. We managed to do some small mammal trapping in the Sunderland area to pinpoint to see if it was just a one-off or if they'd established a population there. Unfortunately, we have found multiple a couple of years afterwards, still finding some, so they are still breeding. And the reason why we're so concerned about this Mediterranean species of shrew is that they have invaded Ireland and they only have a pygmy shrew population, which is going down. The numbers have rapidly declined since these shrews have been found there. And we believe that they might be just out competing for resources because they're a lot bigger than the pygmy shrews. These great white-toothed shrews are roughly around about the size of our common shrews. However, the main ID feature, which you may have guessed from the name, is they have white teeth, whereas all of our native species of shrew all have red tips for the iron deposits on their teeth. So it's a great ID feature. There's subtle colour differences as well, along with you might be able to see on the right-hand photo of the great white-toothed shrew that it has fine white hairs on its tail. That is another feature for the great white-toothed shrew. We also did some trapping down in Nottingham where we did find quite a few great white-toothed shrews there as well. So it does look like they have spread throughout the UK. What we are doing, there is a campaign at the moment called Searching for Shrews. It's on the Mammal Society website. It would be a great thing for people to get out, especially if they've got cats that tend to bring them little presents, or if they're out and about in nature or do small mammal trapping. There is a lot of people who do it just to keep an eye on what biodiversity is in their garden. So we're asking for people to check the shrews that they do capture. There is if you go on the Mammal Mapper app, you can download and take a photo, send it in for it to be verified. It just helps us get a better understanding how spread these animals are. The website's also got a lot of other exciting, interesting projects on there. There is at the moment an owl pellet and birds of prey project going on where we are asking for volunteers to dissect owl pellets and find any shrew skulls so we can see if the great white-toothed shrew has spread to different areas. And it's just another method of monitoring the population of them. It's really an important one because we don't fully know how damaging this could be to our native pygmy shrews. We don't want to lose them. We don't want to risk losing another one of our mammals or decreasing them to the point like what's happened with our red squirrel populations. And we think that these animals may have gone unnoticed because a lot of people who do small mammal trapping have shrew holes in the back of their traps or don't want to handle shrews because they are quite hard to handle. You do need to have a license if you are going to trap with shrews and if you're going to handle them as well, which is you can find all the information on the Mammal Society website and on Natural England as well. Next slide, please. And one of our final project works to mention on our presentation is the purple pitcher plant, the Sarracenia plant, that's going to be added to our list. It's not currently on the list, but it should soon be on our list. We did a big group exercise last year, as you can see from some of the photos. The whole team got together in Cumbria and we spent the day helping pull these plants out from a lovely little boggy area. It was a lovely day as well. We couldn't ask for anything more in Cumbria. It didn't rain and it had blue skies. Who could have known? It's like we paid for the weather. Zoe has also been down to a site at Wareham Forest where on one of the days she pulled miraculous 2,251 plants were pulled from that site on that day, which is a great effort. So we're needing these to be recorded on areas on iRecord or on InsMapper. We can talk about the reporting side of it on a later slide. But as you can see, they're very easy to see with the flowers and stuff, but it's really good if we can know the location so we can monitor and get them hopefully removed before they become a super big problem. It looks like they've been planted at an earlier stage because they're seen as pretty plants, but everyone has their own opinions on that one. And here are some ways that you can record things. iRecord is, most people have heard of iRecord. It covers everything. InsMapper is quite new to the scene. I believe there is still some technical bugs that are being worked out with it. So we've already mentioned Asian Hornet Watch. I believe someone put in the chat that there is another way to report Asian hornets, but we can cover that at the Q&A bit. So these are the three main ones. There's also the mammal mapper, but obviously that only covers mammals, but we're still asking for people to report that. iRecord is our general ones. We will get reports from iRecord, InsMapper, Asian Hornet Watch, and the mammal mapper apps if any of our IAS listed animals or plants is recorded there. We ask, even if you can't be certain, just to record, it can be verified, and you know, more data is needed basically to stop the spread. It was mentioned in this the Scottish presentation yesterday that on average there's 12 non-native species establishing in the UK, I believe, each year. So it's really important for everyone to get involved and chip in and help be the eyes on the ground, really, so we can keep our natural stuff safe. Next slide. And it's just final remarks. Just want to get in touch, help us report. If you've got any questions, both mine and Zoe's emails on there. We also have our main NSI email, which is monitored and sent out to the relevant inspector if you do have something that is outside of our patches. Also wanted to say a thank you to Emma Brand, she may be on here, just for providing some of the slides. We did steal some of her information as well. It's a team effort. And thank you for listening.
Brilliant, thank you both. That was great. And I didn't actually know about your work with the post office, so that was interesting. Just if anyone has any questions, you can add those to the chat. I'm just going to put in a couple of links to some posters that we have with animal species of special concern and the plant species of special concern, if it will send. Yeah, and I'll have a look and see if we have any questions. Yeah, somebody's put a link in there to the Asian Hornet Watch app, so people can use that too. Okay, first question. So can you take any action if any IS plants were sold on Facebook Marketplace?
Facebook is a grey zone, and we don't have powers to use Facebook without sending it to DEFRA legal to investigate. There is a special route that we have to take for any online that falls under the Meta platform. So yes and no. It depends on what is being sold and how much of a risk we see it as. We can't personally look. It has to be reported, and like I said, it has to go up to DEFRA legal to create a case against it, because you can't use Facebook. It's a bit complicated and really, really, really irritating, as Facebook Marketplace is used to sell everything.
Okay. The next question, how do you undertake your inspections? Are they all visual IDs, or do you use any testing systems to support those?
So most of our inspections are visual. We all have various degrees and learnings in conservation, biodiversity, ecology. So we're all pretty clued up on plants and animals. We also do yearly training, team training with plant experts in aquatic plants, because they're the hardest. They're really, really hard. We also have a team of experts behind us. So one of us on the team is a plant expert. So some of our staff gets sent to him. If we're not sure, we have other people that we can send it to. With the Asian hornets and things like that, they get DNA tested. So we send them up to our labs and they get tested by lab people. So yeah, various. Mostly it's just us, but if we're not sure, we've got loads of people that we can ask.
Yeah, great wealth of knowledge in the inspectorate. So somebody's asked about which species are on the horizon scanning list that are at risk of causing issues in the UK. So I'm just going to put in a link to that list so people can have a look at that. Another question, so what is the presence of the inspectorate at the border entry points, e.g. ports? Is it 24/7 or so many days a week?
Well, we would love for it to be 24/7. There's been a bit of an issue with us getting full access at the borders. It's just departments and different places not communicating as well. I think I could safe to say. So we are trying to get access so that we can get more, cover more down there. It should hopefully be a lot easier now that the BCPs have started to be in full operation, and which should make everyone's lives a little bit easier with us having more of a presence at more ports across the country. Zoe's got a very good relationship down in the south of England. It's just trying to find the relative the good contacts to get into, and obviously not all ports bring in everything. They'll be specialised for certain things, such as the Port of Tyne specialised for tea, and things like that. So at the moment, there's not enough, but we are trying to get more of a presence at the ports and entry points that way.
Great. I'll just give it another minute or so for any final questions. I'm going to put as well a link to, so we had the horizon scanning species, but I'll put in a list of alert species as well. So these are species that we're particularly keen for people to report. So I'll add that in a second when it lets me.
There's a couple of questions in the chat as well.
Okay, do you want to read those out? It's not loading those for me at the moment for some reason.
Yes. So is there a full list available of animal plant species that are searched for during inspections? Are all the species on the posters linked above? So do you want to do that one?
Yep, sure. So we have guidance pages on our legislation because nobody wants to read pages and pages of legislation. So the guidance pages are really easy. They break it down really well. We've got two, one purely for animals and one purely for plants. They've got the whole list on there, along with applying for permits or licenses, or what you should do if you've got any plants that you shouldn't have and how you dispose of them. Also, the NNSS website's really good, so they've got lists on there. They've also got ID guides, so if you're never sure, you can go onto there and see, have a look. What you think you have is what you have, or what it might be. So there's various things. But yeah, I'm sure Lucy or one of us can put the guidance pages in the chat.
Another question, how would you like people in adjacent departments, e.g. Forestry Commission, to help? Mainly just getting the word out there, really. So a lot of the campaigns, be plant wise, make sure that people are aware of what they're planting, make sure that biosecurity for washing boots down when you're going from one. I mean, that's mainly just for biosecurity, it's not just for invasives, it's also for your diseases that you don't want to be spread from one place to another as well. So biosecurity and campaigns, I would say, just educate. Anything else? Would you just want to add for that one?
No, I think good. It's just recording, getting the word out there. We're so small and we've not been going very long. No one really knows who we are.
No.
You're doing a brilliant job.
In terms of border work, are non-native species, for example, let's go on. In terms of border work, are your inspections part of import controls or just a speculative to see what you find?
So kind of both. So with import controls, in terms of actual legislative controls at the borders, that's very much more plant health. So we work with plant health a lot, and I do a lot of inspections with plant health inspectors as well. Also border force, so we work with border force a lot. So those two groups of people know about us, know what we're looking for, have all of our contacts. So if they find something that they think could be relevant to us, they send us over, which is really helpful. But we also do speculative stuff as well. So we're not restricted to, these are only the 66 species. We're not looking at anything else. No, definitely not. We're interested in anything that could be invasive, anything that could have a negative impact on our biodiversity or ecology or anything like that.
Couple more questions. How does climate change affect what you classify as a non-native species? For example, if our climate is now suitable for a species naturally, is it still seen as non-native?
Yeah, I don't think that climate would affect whether something is classed as a non-native species. It might make it easier for something to establish, but if it has arrived since the last ice age, then it would still be classed as non-native.
And finally, do you have any info regarding the issuing of licenses under IS order, specifically for the transport and holding of signal crayfish?
So the licensing is all done by Natural England. So we can advise, give guidance, and ask them questions, but we don't actually give out the licenses ourselves. That's done by Natural England. I don't know if Courtney's got anything else to.
I was just going to add that licenses for having single crayfish, it's going to depend also on what your plans are, if it's for consumption or if it's for education and training, or just because you want to have a signal crayfish as a pet or something. So that would depend. So our advice would basically just go to Natural England. They handle the licenses and give you further information. That's all the questions that's in the chat at the moment that I can see.
Yep, I can't see anything else in the Q&A. Well, yeah, thank you both very much. That was a great talk and really interesting. And I'm sure everyone here has learned a lot. And yeah, if there are any other questions that come through afterwards, your contact details were on the slide, so people know where to get hold of you. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for your time this afternoon, and hope you enjoyed the webinar.
Thanks so much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Bye.